Hi, it's me, and I want to do a writing update today, but also because we're so close to National NaNoWriMo Month, I thought this would be a good time to go through my history with NaNoWriMo, like a brief history, and then get into my writing update. So if you are not familiar with NaNoWriMo, it stands for National Novel Writing Month, and it happens every November. And it's when a group of people get together with the shared goal of writing 50,000 words in 30 days. And there's a lot of really fun, creative energy around NaNoWriMo. And for people who need external, pushing and motivation, to help them get their books done, it's a really good opportunity for that. There are a lot of pep talks, and there are forums, and there are in-person meetups that you can go to. The only in-person nano-related thing I did was the first year I participated in NaNoWriMo, which was in 2012. I went to an in-person weekly meetup for Preptober. And so Preptober is when you spend the month of October planning your novel and plotting your novel so you can hit the ground running November 1st. And it wasn't a bad experience. It was an interesting experience though. But anyway, so the first year I participated in NaNoWriMo was in 2012. I was writing a YA fantasy. It's a really long story, but if you know anything about my writing history, you know that I don't really write fantasy. I've written contemporary fantasy, so I've written under the fantasy umbrella, but I don't write high fantasy. It's not really my favorite thing to read even. And I'm not, writing YA does not work for me, but I did not know that in 2012. So I was writing a YA fantasy book, and I quit, if memory serves me correctly, I want to say about 2 weeks in, give or take a few days. And the first 10 or 15,000 words, I was having a lot of fun. I was getting used to the world. I was getting used to my two main characters. And I got about 15,000 words into the book, and because my male main character was so interesting and so wonderful and amazing, it made it even more obvious that my female main character was such a drag and so boring. And so I ended up quitting and reevaluating and starting the story over from scratch the next year. But that concludes NaNoWriMo. I didn't win. Now we're in 2013. In 2013, I hadn't gotten the memo yet that YA is not working for me. So I wrote I was working on a YA supernatural horror. And a similar trajectory happened. The first 10 or 15,000 words, everything was fine. I get around 25, 30,000 words, and I start realizing that I have some problems. And it's not with the main character this time. I love that main character. She was very interesting to me. It was with some side characters and some plot stuff that came along with one of the side characters, and it just wasn't working, and I wasn't executing the story properly. I did win NaNoWriMo. I ended the month with about 55,000 words. I got my winner's goodies and my winner's badge, and I was really excited. But I ended up quitting the story around the 60K mark and I had 7 chapters left to write. I finished my outline. I was just so miserable, and I could not stand it anymore. And I was so miserable that one of my blogging friends at the time, she doesn't blog or write anymore, but one of my blogging friends at the time actually sent me a message with a link to an article that was written by this author who walked away from a contract and money because the book that she was contracted to write was making her miserable. And I was like, okay, if she can walk away from a writing contract, I can walk away from this book nobody is waiting for. And I did later rewrite that book from scratch. But now we're in 2014, and so still have not gotten the memo that YA is not working for me, so I'm doing another YA supernatural horror, and I went again, and this time in the month of October, I outlined the entire story. I found out with this story that outlining an entire story before I start writing it does not work for me, because things change as you write. The story grows and evolves, and sometimes, it changes direction a little bit. And that did not bother me this month though, because I was not paying attention to this book. I literally just followed my outline to a T, and I made a goal of writing 1 chapter a day. And if I could write more, great. If I couldn't, who cares? And I made like an accountability board. And this was the only year I did this. And I don't know why, because I actually really enjoyed it. But I took like a foam poster board and drew a calendar on it. And every single day I wrote, I got a shiny star sticker. And I was like really excited to get myself a sticker every day. But in any case, I did finish this book. I finished it in December. And I hated it. And it took me several months to even agree to like read over it to see, you know, if maybe it could be salvaged or something. And I don't know. I wasn't miserable when I was writing it because I wasn't thinking about it that much. I was just following my outline. But when I thought about it later and when I read over it later, I was really unhappy with it anyway. I don't blame NaNoWriMo for that. If you know anything about my productivity level, it's not difficult for me to write 50,000 words in 30 days. But, you know, starting with a full outline and then not deviating from that outline, that was not a good thing to do. Nor was trying to write young adult books a good thing to do. But anyway, moving on to 2015. I signed up to do NaNoWriMo in 2015. And again, everything, and this was at this point, I got in the memo. I was no longer trying to write young adult books, but I was very reluctant to give up, you know, my much larger pool of agents. And also I would have to redo my entire query list too, because most of my agents that were on my list at the time were YA only. So I tried to do like a adult YA crossover supernatural horror, and it did not work. And so I got about 10 or 15,000 words into the story, realized it wasn't working. And so I took a step back, reevaluated some things, and I did write that story the next year. I never edited it though, because I could just tell it was just like a huge mess, and that whole crossover thing just wasn't going to work for me. But I didn't win Nano in 2015 because I quit about 10 days in. So then we get to 2016. I didn't participate because I was editing another book. And then in 2017, I was burned out and taking a break from writing. In 2018, same thing. I was burned out, couldn't write. In 2019, I was still burned out. But I hadn't finished anything in a year and a half, and I was like literally on the crazy making train. I changed my mind on which project to work on almost every single week. I think the longest I got was maybe like 3 weeks into a project before I would quit it and work on something else. I got as far as like 40,000 words into a project one time and I quit because it just was not working. My brain was not working. I just like couldn't write. So this is also probably why this NaNoWriMo in 2019 did not go well. But I decided to do a rewrite of a book that I had tried to write a couple other times. And every single time I tried to write that book, it made me feel like I was losing my mind. It wasn't working. The antagonist was not cooperating with me, which is just such a weird thing to say. But he wasn't cooperating with me, and I was having a really difficult time. And I love the main character and I love the idea. So I was like, let me try one more time, famous last words, to make this story work. And so I picked it to write for NaNoWriMo 2019. And I won Nano this year too. However, I got to December and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I quit like 2.5 chapters from the end. And that's how miserable that book was making me. It was making me so miserable, I wouldn't even write 2.5 more chapters. I was just like, I summarized, you know, what I was planning on doing with those like final chapters. And then I'm like, I can't even do this anymore. Now, part of that was like, I can't even write anymore. And I did decide that I need to take an extended writing break. But I did win NaNoWriMo. But those experiences are kind of another reason why I'm waffling so much, because part of my brain is like, you know, maybe there's something about the pressure that you put on yourself during NaNoWriMo, because even though it is easy for me to write 50,000 words in 30 days, sometimes when I start a story, I'm actually starting kind of slow. And then like, you know, we build up momentum as we go. I build up momentum as I go. And sometimes when I start a project, you know, I can come out of the gate with like high word counts and high levels of productivity. And so I don't ever know until I start writing the story if this is going to be like a slow, you know, rise to like a lot of writing, or if I'm going to be writing a lot out of the gate. And also, it's kind of like that pressure is coming from myself. And so it's like, because like NaNoWriMo is at a certain pace, if you like don't write the first few days of NaNoWriMo, you're like 3,000 words or more, like 4,000 words or 5,000 words behind already. And just that stresses me out. That's why sometimes, like, when I start my reading goal on Goodreads at the beginning of the year, I won't even like look at my reading goal progress until I've read a certain amount of books. But I can control that to a degree anyway. So that's, you know, my history of NaNoWriMo. So writing update time. The last time I did a writing update, I think, was in my 4th quarter goals video at the beginning of the month. And one of my goals for October was to finish the first draft of my suspense book, Working Project Dollhouse. And I finished my book. And in true me fashion, I actually finished it the same week I posted that 4th quarter goals video. So my finish date for Working Project Dollhouse, which is now Finished Project No One Else, so I'm going to call it No One Else for the rest of the video. My word count for the first/second draft was 96,900 something words. And I don't remember the exact number. It was like 960 something or 970 something. And I edited this book a lot as I went. So that's why I call it like first/second draft. I edit a lot as I go anyway, but for some reason in this book, every like 3 to 5 chapters or 5 to 7 chapters, I would stop and go back and edit the previous handful of chapters. So if I had like 5 chapters that I had written that I hadn't edited yet, you know, the next writing session that I had, I would go back and edit the next, you know, the previous like 7 to 10 chapters. So there was like a lot of overlap. I would usually go back a chapter or 2, sometimes 3, and just re-edit all that stuff and go ahead and start cleaning it up and go ahead and start fixing whatever. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One reason was because I was just really enjoying the story and I wanted to read it again. I wanted to read, you know, some fun scenes that I'd written. I just wanted to read them again. The second reason I did this was because I had a lot of writing sessions that were very productive, that were like, you know, 5,000, you know, word sessions. And I was kind of writing in a slightly feverish state. So I also just kind of wanted to go back and make sure everything was okay. So I finished the first draft/second draft Thursday, October 5th. I wrote the final chapter Wednesday, October 4th, but I went back and edited like the last like 12 chapters, and because there were a couple scenes I wasn't happy with, and so I just went ahead and, you know, fixed them and rewrote them and also cleaned up some typos and stuff. And so I got to Friday. And my original plan for this story, when I thought it would take me closer to the end of the book to finish it, was to take a couple weeks off and then start editing, like say in the middle of November, finish editing sometime in December, and then query this book in January. However, because I ended up finishing it so early in the month, I was like, if I go ahead and edit it now and like try to edit in like a week, I can go ahead and send queries out. And this was really appealing to me for a couple of reasons. One, I really wanted to go back and read this book again. Even though I edited it as I went and some of these chapters I had read several times already, I just really wanted to go back and read it again. And 2, you know, I was like, if let's say everything goes really well and I get an agent, then that means I can potentially go into 2024 as an agented writer, and that sounded really good to me. Or let's say things do not go well and everybody rejects me, then I can get that over with and go into 2024 with a clean slate. And that also sounded really appealing to me. So I got to Friday and I was thinking about this and I was like, actually, why even take a week to edit it? I had nothing going on that weekend. I'm like, I don't have to do laundry. I don't have to mess with my hair. I don't have anybody to hang out with. And so I was like, I have nothing to do. And so I was like, if I write and edit in a single space Word document. So my single space document was 166 pages. I was like, if I edit 55 pages a day, or like 110 something, double space pages, I can get this book done in 3 days. Then I can send queries out next week, and then I can just like loaf the rest of the month. And that sounded really good to me because I was getting tired, because I had written a lot in a relatively short period of time. I started writing No One Else August 14th, very specific, and I finished it October 5th. And so I'm like, especially if I edited this whole book in that short period of time, and this would be like the out loud edit. So I'm going to have to read this whole thing out loud. I'm like, I'm probably going to be tired, and then I can just, relax. So I made the decision to edit this book in 3 days. And I did. I did my 55 single space pages Friday. I did my 55 single space pages on Saturday. Now, towards the end of that, when I had about 20 single space pages left to read, my jaw started to hurt a little bit on this side. And I was like, oh no, what's happening? Am I even going to make it through tomorrow? But I slept really well, and I woke up refreshed, and my jaw was not bothering me at all. So, and I also started early in the day, Sunday, and I finished before midnight. And I was so excited. And then I was a little sad because it was over. But I got my query list together, and then Monday, I sent queries out. And so now we are, waiting to see how that goes. I get excited about creating, I don't know why. Anyway, so in the interim, so since I've finished No One Else and sent queries out, it's been about 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks, instead of loafing, I am loafing right now. Going into, maybe participating in NaNoWriMo or maybe not participating in NaNoWriMo. So I am loafing right now, but the previous 2.5 weeks, I have been doing research for the next story. I'm just calling it the Botanist Project, my Botanist Project, whatever. It should be like a horror suspense book. And so Botanist Project, I need to do botanist research, some plant research, and I got my playlist together and got my notes organized. So the last 2.5 weeks, that's what I've been doing, until the last few days. I've literally been loafing, which is good because I needed that. But yes, I did my botanist research and I did my plant research, which I do have a natural interest in poisonous plants and dangerous plants and stuff. And I have a plant encyclopedia that I literally read cover to cover a few years ago. So I already had an idea of some plants that I wanted to use. And I have a few poisonous plants books. But anyway, so I needed to settle on the exact plants that my botanist is going to be working with. I needed to do some botanist research in general. So I have a good idea of what she's doing in her job, because it's important to the story. And also, I got my playlist together, and one of my coworkers, when I told her what my botanist story was about, she sends me this song that she said reminded her of the story that I told her about, and it was actually a really good fit, tonally, for the book. And so I told her that, and so then she sends me a Spotify playlist and then another Spotify playlist that has more songs in that same tone. And so now I have a really good playlist going for this book. And I also have discovered the secret to making a good playlist for your story, because previously, until I worked on No One Else, everything before No One Else, when I tried to make a playlist for the story, I would just kind of pick songs that I liked that kind of fit the tone of the book. And then sometimes if I was lucky, I could get 2 or 3 listens out of the playlist, and it would help me brainstorm the story. And then it was just I was just listening to music that I liked. And I realized when I was building the playlist for No One Else, which was significantly shorter than the playlist for my botanist project, but I noticed that when I build the playlist, when I'm brainstorming, I start associating those songs with the story. And so then the entire time I listened to my No One Else playlist, it helped me brainstorm, and it was amazing. So I'm like, I'm going to do that with my botanist project. And so the entire time I'm like getting my notes together and I'm like thinking about the story. I'm like building the playlist and I'm associating now all of those songs with that story. And so far I've only listened to the playlist twice. Is helping me out a lot, like helping me focus and brainstorm. And I'm really excited to have discovered that because I do enjoy making playlists. It's just, it hasn't always been all that helpful, but my last project and my current project has been really helpful. So I spent about 2.5 weeks, like I said, doing botanist research, doing plant research, getting my playlists together, organizing my digital notes, organizing my physical notes, and doing a lot of brainstorming. And I had the first 7 chapters of like a mini outline for the first 7 chapters, and I'm really excited to get started. I'm really excited about the book. So that's one of the reasons I think it's possible I will participate in NaNoWriMo, because I am like ready to like start writing this book. But then I do have a couple things I want to finish first. So again, who knows? But yeah, that's what I have going on. So I'm really excited about what is to come, and we'll see how things go. So that is all for this video, and so I will see you guys in my next video, which will be my planner flip through video, which should be next week. And if you are curious to see what my planner looks like for next year, which if you saw me talking about my planner for this year, it looks very similar. I just made like some cosmetic changes, but I want to do like a official like planner flip through because it is fun for me. So that video should be going up next week, and this is all for this video. So happy NaNoWriMo if you're participating in NaNoWriMo. Happy Halloween if you're into that, and happy November if you're watching this in November, and happy whatever month you're watching this in. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.